Welcome to the podcast,
Lesbians in Love.
We're your hosts and partners in life and love, Megan Neely
and Erica Cedardahl. And we are international speakers, coaches, and retreat leaders. And this show is for women in relationship with women who have wished for a conscious relating guidebook.
This is a place to ask your questions and hear real talk from lesbians creating the partnership they desire rather than settling for the status quo. Consider this your wish granted. We are in the midst of leading a 5-part free training right now. It is called Transform 5 Limiting Relationship Myths into Relationship Bliss. And we're on day 3, and we wanted to actually share with you the same teachings that we're bringing into that training so that if you're interested, you can go check out the other parts on our Instagram. We have got all the videos posted, and they're on our IGTV at 2 Lesbians in Love. And today we wanted to talk about one of the biggest relationship myths there is. And that is the one thing that you always hear. People give this terrible, terrible advice for relationships, for lasting relationships. Have you been to a wedding and heard advice given that you need to learn how to compromise, and that compromise is the key to lasting love?
Your mother and I have been together for 40 years because I just stopped saying what I wanted. I gave her whatever she needed.
Yeah.
Direct quote from my dad. I love you, Dad, but for real.
And that can get you lasting relationship if that is your only goal. But is that what it's really about? Or is it about really being equals, really getting to hear the truth and be in transparent, real relationship where you each know what you want as individuals, and you also get to know what you want together. So we're going to suggest a new way, a new possibility that's not compromise.
Because when you compromise, what you're doing is you're actually overriding your desire. You may not be fully checking in with yourself and seeing, hey, do I actually want this? And I know when I'm coaching our clients, I see this time and time again, is this desire to avoid conflict as much as possible. Because from this relationship myth, we have been taught to believe that conflict should be avoided at all costs. Conflict is seen as an illness. That means that there's something wrong with your relationship and you should try to avoid conflict as much as possible. And so compromising is the sure way to avoid conflict. But what's true about that is when you do that is you're actually going to have future conflicts. And I've seen this time and time again with my clients and with myself in relationship, is when we don't check in, when we don't give ourselves the space to see if it's something that we actually agree with or want to do, and we override ourselves and we just push it down, is still in your space. It's still in the relationship space. And that unresolved aspect may come up in these other ways. It may come up in a conflict. It may come up in you dropping a dish or something like that. It shows up in these other ways rather than you just sharing what you really want.
And I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted to compromise? Have you ever thought, oh yeah, totally, let's just compromise. I don't really need what I wanted. Let's just go with what you wanted, and then do that again and again and again. Silence. No. So this is what Erica's talking about with overriding, because when you override your needs again and again, eventually you're going to explode or implode, and it is not healthy for long-term sustaining relationship because it's not what's true. It's not what's authentic. So while it may keep the relationship going, that's not always the aim. And I would say that's one of the biggest things. Like, we're not relationship coaches that are just committed to supporting you in keeping your relationship going at all costs. We're here to support you in being in your full aliveness, your full vitality, enjoying each other and enjoying life as much as you possibly can. And sometimes there's some uncomfortable growing pains along the way when you're shifting these dynamics and stepping into a new way of relating to each other. So what's the new way? How do you relate to each other that's not from a place of compromise, which is one person wins, the other person loses, or another version of compromise, one person gets a little bit of what they want, another person gets a little bit of what they want, but neither person is actually fully satisfied. What is another way?
I'm not going to lie, I was cringing through that whole time because this was an old pattern that I used to do in relationship. Was I would compromise all the time and it kept my relationships going. Was I fully present in that relationship? No. Was I fully present to my aliveness and my desire? No. And that has a huge cost. And you may not even realize the cost until you get out of that pattern. Or like Megan said, you explode one day. So, are you ready to learn something that's going to support you and not always having to compromise? I'm imagining that you just said yes. Wanted to talk to you about the win-win. This is something that is so huge in Megan and I's relationship, and something that we support our clients with as well, is how can you create a win-win? And what I found in my personal dynamic with this is that it challenges and encourages me to speak my truth, which has been something that has scared me in the past. Because I can make up all these stories in the moment that Megan may respond in a certain way to what I actually want. And I have this whole story made before I go and say it. And then when I finally blurt it out to her, she responds in a way that is actually very supportive. Because at one time in my life, I spoke my desire. It was not received. So I made up in that moment, I don't need to do this. If I do this, that means that I will not have harmony in my relationship. And I'm wondering if you've ever had an experience like this where you've spoken your truth and it's actually created conflict or discord in your connection, maybe with a family member or a friend or a lover. And you make up in that moment, it's not safe for me. And so that's the beauty of being in a relationship with someone who is willing to really see you for you and honor your desire. And so this gives you an opportunity to share what you really want. So the idea is for you to win, for you to have your desire, and for your partner to have their desire too. And it's a great way to get creative around something that maybe in the past you would not get to do. And it gives you an opportunity to create something fun to make it happen for both of you.
So the first place to begin when you're finding, let's say you're in a conversation with a loved one and you're finding that you're disagreeing, or it seems like you want something different. Rather than just thinking like, oh, they're not on the same page as me, they don't want what I want, this is never going to work, that's going to totally take you in the downward spiral, the first thing to do is take a breath and get curious. Are you willing to create a win for everyone involved? So this might just be you and one other person. Maybe you're dealing with, it's a family dynamic and, you're working with your partner and kids involved. So are you willing to create a win for everybody involved? Check and see. Now, when you're checking for willingness, often what our mind does, and I see this happen with clients again and again when they're just learning this pattern, often what our mind does is it goes to, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to create a win for all. We are not wanting the same thing, and you just cycle back down into the spiral. So the first thing to know is that when you're in this place of checking if you're willing, your body is going to tell you. It's actually going to inform you when you check in and see, is my chest tight? Am I gripping? Am I holding my breath? Am I clenching? And if that's what's happening, then it's likely that you're not willing. But if you can find some spaciousness, if you can deepen your breath, if you can get your body into an open position or begin to move your body, then willingness and curiosity starts to seep in. And then you can explore, well, what would it look like to create a win? Tell me more about what it is you're really wanting. And then you get to also check in with yourself. Share more about what you're really wanting. What is it underneath this surface level desire that you're really longing for? How can you express that in a way that can really be heard? And this is an important piece here, is this is not the time to argue about who's right and take positions and, go back and forth about why your way is right and the other person's way is wrong and all of that. Like, none of that's going to take you in a good direction. This is about listening to each other, which is obviously a bigger teaching here. But when you actually get to drop in and feel like, what do I really want underneath this? What am I really wanting? And then ask your partner or ask your loved one that you're in conversation with, what are they really wanting? And tell me more and share about that. I'm curious. How can we create a win for all of us here? And you get to explore and go back and forth in that dynamic. So there are multiple practices that we work through this with clients on, but we wanted to at least introduce you to the idea that compromise is not the only answer. And in fact, while it might be an answer to keep people in relationship, as in not getting a divorce, it doesn't mean that they're staying happy in that relationship. And so if you want really connected, joyous, playful, long-term relationship, then this possibility would be a great one to try on. So for your love amplifier this week, we invite you to for the next time that you end up in a place of conflict, or it feels like you and your partner or a loved one are wanting different things, to get to try on breathing, shifting into a place of checking if you're willing to actually create a win for all, and then get curious about how that could occur. And as we said at the beginning, if you would love to explore more of these relationship myths that can keep you feeling blocked and disconnected, and explore what it would be like to step into new territory of bliss and relationship resilience, then go ahead, head over to our Instagram profile, 2 Lesbians in Love. We have the first 3 video segments that we've taught live up right now, and in the next 2 days, if you're listening to this episode on the day it's released, in the next 2 days we're going to have the other 2 parts of the training out. So head over there, check out the training, and again, just look for Transform 5 Limiting Relationship Myths into Relationship Bliss, and you'll see those series of 5 Instagram TV video trainings just for you.
Now that our tender hearts are exposed, what now? Now that you and I both know, what now?
listening to Lesbians in Love with your hosts, Megan Neely and Erica Cedardahl. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave us a rating and a review, and tell your friends. Thank you to Sarah Geddes for providing the music. You can find her on Instagram at Sarah Geddes Music, and go ahead and check out our show notes for all the links.